Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Mark Prater podcast, where our aim is to connect our global family of churches with our executive director. Mark, you appear to be in a hotel room, and from what I understand, you are not even in the country. Where are you? You can sort of see out the window behind you.
Yeah,
Where is this?
I'm in Guadalajara, Mexico, actually. Let me step aside. That gives you a bit of a glimpse of a part of the city of Guadalajara. Flew in last night, and Chobi Estupinian, Roberto Estupinian, we call him Chobi, who's the senior pastor of Iglesia Gracia Soberana here in Guadalajara, picked me up. And I became very aware of how large this city is because of the traffic from the airport to the hotel. And Chobi was telling me, I believe Guadalajara itself, Guadalajara proper is about 5 million, but this area is closer to 10 million people. So it's a big city in Mexico, a strategic city in Mexico, and so grateful that we have a church here in Guadalajara, which is why I came. I came because Chobi invited me when I saw him last year at Fieles, and wanted to get down here to just encourage him and to be with the church. This church has actually been in existence for 30 years. It was planted 30 years ago by a man by the name of Luis Berma. And he's a man now in his late 60s. And just a few years ago, he pursued adoption into Sovereign Grace. And after he was adopted, Carlos Contreras just did a great job leading through that process. He began to talk about, Luis did, about his own transition from the senior pastor role. So through a process, they determined that Chobi was the guy who could potentially be the senior pastor. Chobi and his wife, Gabby, were in Juarez at the time after graduating from our pastor's college, and they moved to Guadalajara. They've been here for 4 years now. Chobi has been on staff for, I think, the first 2 or 3 years, just serving alongside Luis. And so it was about a year or two ago, somewhere in that time frame, that they transitioned the role to Chobi as a senior pastor. And Luis supported him in that, and just recently retired as an elder for a number of reasons. One of them just to care for his wife a bit more, who's facing some health issues. Chobi's just stepped in and just done a great job of winning the hearts of the people in the church and building a gospel centrality in the church. And Andres Contreras, actually Carlos's son, is here in Guadalajara, moved here a little over a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago now, to serve alongside of Chobi. He's a pastoral intern. Will be pursuing ordination at some point. So it's just so good to see Chobi here. Now, here's why a story that he told me in the car from the airport to the hotel last night. And I hear this story a lot as I talk to pastors in Sovereign Grace. Since the pandemic, this church has grown from about 100 to 240 now. They're getting on a Sunday morning, and they're facing issues like, all right, we have to find a new meeting place because they're doing 2 services just to accommodate that 240 people. And some of those are new believers coming to Christ. And I just want to mention that because I hear that consistently as I travel for Sovereign Grace, even outside the United States. We're just seeing this not quite revival. I'm praying it's revival at some point, but this interest in people having questions and coming to churches with those questions, trying to get answers. You've had that experience at Living Hope, Ben, as another example in Harrisburg. So it's just a reminder to our guys, let us be faithful to continue to reach out to people with the good news of Jesus Christ, because there are people out there that are still reeling from the pandemic and all that's going on in our culture right now. And let's lead them to Christ by the grace of God and with the Spirit's help.
Yes, I just got back from El Paso a week or so ago, and from the Antioch group, the last retreat we had, and we spent the last time together in prayer, asking God to revive our hearts and the hearts of all of us in Sovereign Grace. We would be pastors and members of churches who love the lost and move toward them. Love to see that, how those guys in Mexico model that for us. I mean, it's hard to be around those guys in Mexico and not leave a conversation with your faith stirred and feeling inspired, encouraged. So I'm sure you're enjoying your time there. But what's happening in Guadalajara, as most guys know, most people who watch this podcast know, is not confined to Guadalajara. Actually, Latin America, there's all kinds of stuff happening in Sovereign Grace. You had a couple updates for us, I believe.
Yeah, let me just speak on what you just said. You spend any time around Hellman Avila
Yeah,
in El
and I
Paso,
did.
that man is evangelistic,
Yeah,
and he will stir you to reach out to the
he did.
lost with the gospel. And that's how he's really built his church. Carlos is that way. Abelardo Munoz in
Mm,
Juarez is very much that way. So our
yeah,
Mexican brothers really are leading us in that way. They're just such a
yeah,
great example, and we can learn from them, which is why I'm
so
eager to
true.
tell you, give you just some other updates of what's happening here in Latin America. Actually, in this city here in Guadalajara, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a gathering of 70 pastors and leaders, all
Mm,
from Sovereign Grace churches, meaning Sovereign Grace churches who are their partner churches or candidate churches. And it was a very meaningful retreat for a number of reasons. One of them being it was a historic moment for Sovereign Grace, really had an impact on Carlos in particular, who's led here in Mexico well over 30 years. That 70 guys was the largest gathering of
mm,
Sovereign Grace pastors and leaders in Latin America in our history in Sovereign Grace. And so
beautiful.
that's something just to rejoice in. And it's evidence of how God is at work here in Latin America, not only with the spread of Reformed doctrine, but also gospel centrality. And we're
Mm,
getting swept up in our small family of churches is getting swept up in what God is
right.
doing. And it's just a joy to participate in. Actually, just a few days ago, I got a text from Jose Mercado. There's another church in Costa Rica. This one is on the east side of San Jose, Costa Rica, that contacted Josela, a church he's been relating to for some time. And they're saying, we want to formally pursue adoption into Sovereign
Mm-hmm.
Grace. So we have one partner church in Costa Rica, in Cartago, led by Alan Mange. And with this church, we'll have now 3 candidate churches who are pursuing adoption in Costa
Mm,
Rica. So things are happening in Costa
wow,
Rica as just one example of what's going on in Latin America.
that's excellent. And to key off of what you said earlier, we pray that that revival will happen not only in the States but globally. And God is doing remarkable things uh, across the globe. And for us to be able to partner with what God's doing and the men that God is using is a true privilege. And so thanks
Yeah.
for your contributions on our behalf, serving those men. Thank you to all those watching the podcast, reading the podcast, who pray for what God's doing globally. And that's all for now. We'll see you here next week, Lord willing. Bye.
Thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, Mark would love to hear from you. For more videos like this, hit subscribe on YouTube or by email at markkprater.com.